Executor has one of the coolest remembrances when it comes to lore and overall story within Elden Ring Nightreign, and I'm super pumped to bring this guide video to you. So let me know if you have any comments by the end of the video, leave them down in the comment section below, and let's jump into his very first remembrance. Now, per usual, like any remembrance that you may or may not have done so far, you're going to have to defeat at least one Night Lord to grab a memory fragment in order for you to get access to doing these remembrances, and Executor is no different. So after you defeated one Night Lord, come back and you should have chapter 2 available in your journal to go ahead and start. Now, once you've entered the realm of remembrance, you're going to look around and check your map because you're going to have an icon right next to Guardian. You want to go ahead and make your way to the right side of Round Table Hold, where you're going to find Guardian right between two paintings. As you see him standing there, you want to go ahead and exhaust all of his dialogue, and he's going to ask you about the Erd Tree. You can either affirm or deny that you have seen it. I'm going to go ahead and affirm it, and you can continue exhausting all of what Guardian has to say. Once you have finished talking to Guardian, you will then have an exclamation point on your map right next to Duchess, who is located back in the original Round Table Hold Gray Site area. Once you make your way over to Duchess, you'll then be able to exhaust all of her dialogue, and she's going to ask you to go get her some flowers located somewhere in Limveld. This will be the point of your remembrance where you will receive for yourself a personal objective and then need to commence an expedition to get yourself into Limveld. As you start your very first day, you can open your map and you're going to see an icon in the top right hand corner, which is the exact location you need to go to in order to find these flowers that Duchess has requested. Now, in my personal opinion, you can do this solo, especially because of the deflection that Executor has, but I like to go in with a group as I'm not a huge fan of solo playing. But make your way right to the location that was marked on the map, and then a Bloodhound Knight is going to spawn that you need to defeat before you grab these flowers. Now, I have seen people defeat this Bloodhound Knight at level 1. I was with a team that another Executor actually needed to go and do this, and it was no problem because you can deflect every single thing the Bloodhound Knight throws at you, which shouldn't be too much of an issue considering your kit. In this footage here, obviously I'm level 10. This is my second night, and I make very short work of him without a team close by. Once you defeat him, you will grab the flowers located right here on the field, and this is all you're going to need to do for this particular expedition. At this point, you can continue on the expedition as normal. It doesn't matter if you win or lose at the end of the expedition, your quest item is going to come out with you regardless. But once you end the expedition and come back to Round Table Hold, you need to run directly over to Duchess, as she's going to have some dialogue for you and thank you for the flowers. You then are going to be tasked with giving these flowers to Iron Menial, who's going to be located on the left side of Round Table Hold out in the gardens. So run over to him, and then he will have something to say about the flowers he's currently dealing with. Exhaust all of his dialogue, at which point you will have the option to give him the golden blessed flowers. You'll then be prompted to sit down at the easel, where you will start to paint the Erd Tree that you have seen. Continue to do that until the prompt has ended, and then you can head right back over to Iron Menial because your remembrance will then be completed and you can be prompted to leave. Once you find your way back to Round Table Hold, you will be greeted with the Executor's Chalice as well as the Blessed Flowers. The Blessed Flowers are going to give you two things. First off, it's going to give you +3 dexterity, and your Cursed Sword move, once your character skill is active, is going to restore HP. And as far as the Executor's Chalice, it will have 1 blue, 1 yellow, and 1 white slot. Now, when it comes to Executor's second remembrance, it took me a while for this to show up in the journal. He only has 2 remembrance, but I swear you have to kill at least 5 or 6 Night Lords in order for you to get this second remembrance to come up, which is going to be chapter 6. Once you get access to chapter 6, you can go ahead and begin your remembrance, at which point you'll be teleported into the realm of remembrance and Round Table Hold. Once you're there, you'll check your map, and there's going to be an exclamation point on Duchess, so you need to run over to her and start talking to her in order to exhaust all of her dialogue. She's going to tell you how the grace is fading and that you could be the one to fix it. As you exhaust all of her dialogue, you're going to get a personal objective added, at which point you can head into an expedition. And once you get into your expedition, you're going to notice at the top left in the snowy area is going to be an icon that you need to go and snag. This is going to be the one item that you need in order to complete this remembrance, but it does take a while to get there, and I would highly recommend doing this with a solid team. team. I also recommend running here on the second night and not the first for the sole reason of the fact that you have to face an Erdtree avatar, and Erdtree avatars in general are pretty easy to take down. However, this one for whatever reason was hitting me so incredibly hard that I definitely got taken down and my team ended up finishing this off. But as you arrive right next to the flower that you need to get, you're going to be greeted with that Erdtree avatar who will spawn, and you gotta take him down. Once you get him down, you can access the golden tree, and from that tree you're going to be able to get the item that Duchess has asked you to snag, and that's the golden sprout. At this point, finish the rest of your expedition because that is the only item you need now. Now, upon returning to Round Table Hold after your expedition, you'll see an exclamation point once again on Duchess, so go ahead and start exhausting all of her dialogue. This next portion of the Remembrance is one of the coolest things that I've ever seen in any Souls game, and we're going to talk about it here in just a second after you get your cutscene to go to the next area. Now, I'm not going to show you the cutscene for those people that don't want it spoiled, but holy crap, is it so incredibly cool. What you're going to have to do here is you are going to have a 1v1 fight against another Executor. This is a really fun parry timing fight. The combinations are pretty easy to figure out. It very much reminds me of something from Sekiro or a very gunslinger-esque fight, which I thought was just incredibly cinematic, especially with the Erdtree in the background and coming back to Altus Plateau, which is an area in Elden Ring that I came to know and love very, very well. And just for those who have never really used Executor as someone who parries, but rather a just dual katana wielder as you play through Nightreign, let me tell you, the parry is very, very forgiving. It is probably the easiest parry that I've ever used in any game, period, so you shouldn't have too much trouble figuring out his timing, as well as counteracting and parrying each individual strike from your opponent. Now, once you defeat him, you're going to be seemingly left in an open area with absolutely nothing to do as the other Executor fades away. But there is a catch here. You're going to run backwards away from the Erdtree to the point where you see a light sphere in the sky. Once you see that sphere and run over to it, there's going to be a house with an easel that spawns, and you turn into a ghost. Head on into the house, and you're going to find a Crucible Knight hovering over a body. The Crucible Knight will then stab himself, and the screen will fade to black. You'll then find yourself in Round Table Hold, sitting in a seat next to Duchess, who has a bunch of dialogue for you. As you exhaust all of her dialogue, you're going to find yourself not only getting the Remembrance armor, but also wearing it at the same time. And at this point, your Remembrance is completed. You have everything you need in order to have some of his best relics, as well as his Remembrance armor and any lore that you wish to know about the Executor. The only thing you'll need to do now is head back to the journal and conclude your Remembrance. And guys, that is going to be it for Executor's Remembrances. They are some of the coolest, I think, out of all the Nightfarers, but definitely stay tuned and subscribe on your way out because we have Revenants coming up next, and I cannot wait to get into them and share that with you. So without further ado, thank you so much for watching to the end of the video, and until next time, stay safe, enjoy the game, and I'll see you in the next one.